Well, good evening, everyone. I'd like to call to order this meeting of the Cunningham Township Board for Monday, May 8th, 2023. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Ms. Wu,
Here.
Mr. Evans,
Here.
Ms. Hersey,
Here.
Ms. Colasetti,
Here.
Ms. Bishop,
Here.
Ms. Wilkin,
Here.
Mr. Quisenberry, Mayor Marlin,
Here.
Ms. Chenoweth.
Here.
Ms.
And I-
Owana.
Here.
And I believe Mr. Quisenberry will be joining us by phone, so we'll keep an ear out. Approval of the minutes. Is there a motion to approve the minutes from, do we have the minutes? We don't have the minutes. Okay, we'll move on. They'll be for next month. We'll move on to any additions to the agenda. No additions. Public participation. Does anyone wish to address the Cunningham Town Board? Okay. Move on to committee to verify bills.
Good evening. This last month in the town fund, we had $35,961.05 in expenditures. In the general assistance fund, we had $83,993.90. Our total in expenditures was $119,954.95. Happy to take any questions you have about the bills, and then I can go over the supervisor's memo.
No questions? Could we have a motion to approve the town fund and general assistant fund bills?
Move to approve the town fund and the general assistance bills.
Second.
All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. That motion passes. Okay.
Under reports of officers, I just wanted to first speak to the city council meeting last week to clarify, and we had to do a little run around to figure out right hand talking to the left, but essentially it sounds like the city is looking to sell 3 properties to that housing authority. And so I followed up when I was at the meeting, and I followed up with the executive director at the housing authority, Lily Walton, and she clarified for me that she and I had spoken about a grant that the housing authority had received, and they were looking for locations to operate essentially a reunification program for families, especially those who've been justice involved, to reconnect with their children. So either to get housing to stabilize and reconnect with children, or to be able to move, to have housing for children. She had requested at that time that the township partner with Housing Authority in providing supportive services. And we were very interested. So I had responded to her, this was November, that we were interested in that. And did she have particular properties in mind? I didn't understand, I haven't had communication with her since, that it was the housing authority's intention to use the 3 transitional housing properties for this purpose. And so we are meeting, the city, the township, and the housing authority are meeting this week. That might be tomorrow, I can't remember, to discuss the details of the program piece. But I just want to put forward that the township supports housing authority acquisition of those properties. Since at this point, the township is not in a position, it's not the right properties for us. We're looking to acquire properties that are more multifamily apartment dwellings. There was a period of time where we were where we've always been interested in running programs out of those properties. So being able to run programs out of those properties in conjunction with the housing authority is really kind of helps to realize that vision. And in particular, I just want to point out that we had requested 30 vouchers a year from the housing authority's sponsor-based voucher program. And the MOU that you approved didn't have a number, so I followed up to find out, where are we falling? And they said it was looking like 10 vouchers a year. And we expect to have about 30 families exiting from our program. A number of our families are justice involved and do meet the criteria of this program. We also have a number of families that are very large, where it's very difficult to find them housing. And this transitional housing program in 3-bedroom units will be very useful to housing those families. So I just wanted to clarify, since that came up last meeting, I was unaware of it. I found out about it at, essentially, the day of the meeting. So I just wanted to clarify that that's the township's position on that. And I look forward to doing program design with the city and the housing authority.
Thanks for the clarification. I'll just jump in. The city has been communicating mostly with the housing authority. I think everyone's been talking to each other, but not simultaneously, and that was where the problem was. But we're all on the same page,
Yep.
so it's going to be okay.
And I wanted to also just offer a few things from the memo this month. Let's see, I would say our general assistance is staying strong. I do have some concerns about general assistance increasing next year with some of the economic instability. So you'll see in the budget, I have an increase scheduled for that just in case. I will say we are extremely pleased with the City of Urbana ARPA award. We've essentially made, because we were awarded those dollars, and I know it went through town board and hasn't gone through city council yet. That said, we went ahead and changed our rules because there are so many families impacted. Obviously, we can change back if we don't have final approval, but as of middle of April, we went to offering 1 to 4 months of rental assistance, up from 1 month. Our rental assistance now may include future rent if it's needed for housing stabilization, particularly for homeless. This is only for homeless residents or those with a voucher. And the reason why is because landlords who have seen future rent opportunities have changed to basically add future rent to people's bills. So we're not going to be working with the private sector in terms of arrears. But this is very important for homeless families to move into housing. Oftentimes 1 month rent is really not enough to stabilize. So that is our target population, in addition to those with vouchers. 4 months of voucher rent is very small. So we tend to see that those allocations are quite small and don't have a huge budget impact. We've changed it so that our rent cannot exceed 60% of monthly income. That's up from 50%. We'll stay with 70% for households on a fixed income. We did an analysis and we saw that we are seeing, and especially going into the summer months, we're going to see income go down. That we wanted to give a little more flexibility for those families. We will now take a verified employment letter if people don't have 30 days of employment. This is really important for McKinney-Vento Definition Act homeless families. We've increased from 200% to 225% of the poverty level. That is also based on looking at our rental assistance denials. We don't have a lot of denials, but the denials that we have, 4 out of 6 of them in a given time frame that I looked at were because they were they were above 200% of the federal poverty level, but below 225. That is also because we're seeing families having to earn more to pay for higher rents. We've always expedited homeless applications. We are doing a better job of marking domestic violence and medical issues and other emergencies. So we now have a better and more streamlined process, and so all of those applications are expedited. And then we will now take IDs with photo and name accepted. We have real problems with the DMV in the community. I'm sending a letter to our new Secretary of State. Champaign DMV is non-functional. We have been accepting expired IDs, but we'll accept expired IDs and we'll also take IDs with photo and name. And if we need to do verification, we have ways of doing that. So I just wanted to let you know that's really exciting. Not only will we not run out of money in terms of our budget, but we're really going to expand that critical program at a time when I think people really need it, which is right as we go into the summer. I think only other things I want to point out is emergency housing for families. As of this memo, we had 2 families on our wait list and 2 unstably housed. We've been able to move 1 family in. So essentially, we have 1 family that's literally homeless. We like to keep it, really keep an eye on that piece. I'll also say that Urbana School District expected to receive another renewal of COVID dollars, which paid for our case management in the schools. They did not receive that renewal, so we're looking at other funding options, and we're committed to supporting at least half-time in the schools, which honestly, based on what we're seeing, is sufficient most times of the year. So I just want to let you know that program is not in jeopardy, but it may involve, and you'll see in the new budget, we're doing some of that funding of that program through our tax levy. I think the only other thing to know is that because we are seeing an increase both in food and utility assistance, and we are trying to get a handle on what utility assistance is going to look like from RPC and the LIHEAP program. We're very concerned that it might shut down in the summer months when the electricity bills will really be particularly high in Urbana. And so we've asked the county for ARPA dollars that would contribute to a utility assistance program, amongst other things that we asked for. So I will keep you posted. We should know by the next town board meeting what our county ARPA allocation is, if any. Happy to answer any questions you have.
Questions for Danielle? Grace?
Thanks for all the updates, and I'm glad to hear that the ARPA dollars are already getting put out to the great uses. I didn't quite catch what you had said in the beginning about 30 vouchers down to 10 vouchers. I don't know if you could clarify that.
Yeah, so the Housing Authority put in their move to work plan that they wanted to do sponsor-based vouchers, particularly for families with children. They had let me know this, I want to say a year ago, that they had planned for this, and we put in a joint proposal. It was a competitive process. There were 3 different organizations awarded. We put in a proposal with the school district with the understanding that we would receive double, because otherwise I would have had the school district just put in their own application. That's not what happened. So I think each one got 10 vouchers. But we had asked for 30. So essentially we're in a situation where we need another pathway, since emergency housing vouchers have not been renewed for our community. We need another pathway. I will say that the Housing Authority has let me know that there'll be 2 important wait lists that open in the next 2 months. The first will be the tenant-based voucher program, the Housing Choice Voucher Program, and the second will be mainstream vouchers for people receiving SSI or SSDI who have a disability. So as soon, if anyone wants to know when those vouchers are available, please sign up at ctso.org, our new shortened website. It's the first thing you can do when you go to our website, and you will be the second to know. The first Housing Authority will be the first to know. You will be the second to know when there is openings for vouchers.
Thank you so much. And you said at that website you can sign up for a notice for when those application windows for vouchers are open?
Yep. Okay. People can sign up also at the Housing Authority website, hacc.net. But if you're an Urbana resident, it's helpful to know from the supervisor's office, because we have helpful information about how to navigate that process.
Any other questions? Okay. I think we're ready for the budget presentation.
Yeah, so I had sent you a compiled budget. So as we have for the last few years, since we have a 30-day public notice period, I sent the ordinance in the packet. I've updated that ordinance slightly with income and expenses projections from the budget. So if you want to look at what I sent you this afternoon, essentially what you'll see is the budget with a memo from me and an impacts graphic, a memo from our assessor, and then our ordinance. So I'd like, if you, when we get to the motion portion, if you could move this version that was sent to you today. That's the most up-to-date version. After the ordinance, you'll see income and basically you'll see income and expenses last year budget to this year budget across each one of our funds. And I guess, you know, the short version of the story, because you'll see a more expanded narrative in the final budget, but the short version of the story is that not much has changed on the supervisor's side. In fact, I think we're looking at a projected increase of about 1%. But on the general assistance side, we have a significant amount of grant dollars that are coming in. We still are projecting a surplus. I believe that by the time we get to the final budget, that surplus will be smaller. We're still, especially waiting on the county ARPA allocation, and making sure that we've included all of the expenses. So I just want to give you a heads up that we may not have quite the surplus you see here. Right now with the town fund, and I'll let Ivana introduce her budget, but essentially we're looking at a $33,713 surplus, so close to a balanced budget. In the general assistance fund, we're looking right now with this version, $284,000 approximately. I have, budgeted all of the grants that we've secured, including the city ARPA, even though there's one more step in that. This does not include the vehicle that we received from the city of Champaign because we expect to purchase that. We hope to purchase it in this fiscal year. So you won't see that. You'll only see the insurance and the gas for that, but hopefully we'll have a van, an outreach van in place before the end of the year. Other than that, big highlights include essentially support for about 5 full-time equivalents from HHI funding. Urban obviously really leaned in on rental assistance. I did budget a projected budget for the county, which is not the amount that we asked for, so again, we'll see. But I've budgeted in, and the county will really lean in on property acquisition for transitional housing staff if it's funded, and also utility assistance. I have funded definitely a much greater budget for rental assistance because we've expanded our program. We expect to fund rental assistance out of both tax levy dollars and the Urbana ARP dollars. And I've broken, with our finance director's help, we have broken out the budget in a way that I think is a little bit more personable. So you can now see our food assistance, our utility assistance. We've broken out rental assistance for both move-in assistance and homeless prevention. So homeless prevention would be for rental arrears. Move-in assistance will be for homeless families and individuals. So I think it gives us a better sense. I've also done financial projections, and I went back 10 years. So I basically now have 10 years of history of finances, and then I'm doing 5 years of financial projections. The reason why is because some of the grants that we have extend into 2026, and I want to make sure that essentially we have plans for how to taper down certain programs and how to sustain other programs. So you won't be seeing all of that as part of this, but I'm certainly happy to answer any questions about the past or the future as we go through this process. I think the only last thing I would see is there's a lot more moving parts in the budget this year than before. So I'd really encourage you, I'm not going to be able to answer questions on the fly in June. So I need you to ask questions in advance. So if at all you can look at the budget in detail, I'm happy to walk it through with you in the office. I'm happy to answer any questions. But there's so many different pieces to the puzzle. There's literally, in terms of classes, we went from 3 classes to about 12 classes, each class being a different grant. So when you have a question, I'll need the ability to actually look in and see the details. But I totally welcome engagement from the board. I think it's important for public transparency. The GA budget is the purview of the supervisor. It's the exclusive purview of the supervisor, but I provide it publicly, and I'm happy to engage and answer any questions because I think you all could make that budget better, and you may have ideas for how to do that. So I certainly welcome collaboration in that way. With that, I guess I'll welcome any questions about the supervisors and general assistance budget, and then I can pass it to our assessor to give her update.
Any questions at this point? Grace?
Thank you. Thanks again for the updates here. I'll definitely have to look into this update in more details later. Some procedural questions. So just to clarify, today we're putting this on file for public inspection, and then June 12th is when it's planned to come for a vote before
Correct.
town board for
Yep,
approval.
and you'll see a public hearing. The clerk's office will notice a public hearing. They will put it on file. So I sent them the same copy I sent you, and so I think I mentioned to the clerk's office, it needs to be posted by Friday, I believe, to fit the 30 days. So as long as it's posted by then, it's also available in paper form at the clerk's office and the township office. So if someone wants to come and view it in person, they're welcome to do that.
Thank you. And as far as how the public communicates that input, that, you know, we'll have a hearing, people can come here, they can send an email. Is there another avenue for this input, or those are the main typical ones?
Yeah, so the primary way for input on the budget would be to send an email to supervisor@ctso.org. People can also call our office at 384-4144. They can look at the budget both at the clerk's office and our office. Also, oftentimes people aren't necessarily in the weeds, but they want to make sure something in particular is covered. So I get a lot of input from social service agencies. For example, we just had a summit called Feeding Champaign County. It was a day-long summit. I know the city was involved and the township was involved, and it was a huge gathering where there was a lot of data shared from the Eastern Illinois Food Bank and the pantries in town. And after I got done with that summit, I increased our food assistance budget and kind of thought through a little bit more in detail what that would look like. So I always welcome, especially those who are working in different areas who see trends. I'd really welcome input from our participants and from, you know, members of the public or service agencies.
Any other questions? Chandra.
This may be silly, but what does TWP stand for at one of
Oh,
the headers?
It's township. It's just I didn't want to write it out
Oh,
because
okay.
it's township total.
Okay, all right.
I know it does sound like twerp, doesn't it? That's terrible. I should change it.
Grace?
Thank you. I had just a big picture question here of, it looks like we've got kind of a high carrying balance of like 4.2 million kind of beginning and end balance. And I didn't know if, you know, if that was for, I was imagining kind of saving up for future big investments. I don't know if that's the right assumption, or if you could explain that kind of high carrying balance.
Absolutely. So we're actually capped by state law in terms of the fund balance. So we cannot carry a balance that's more than 2.5 years of the average last 3 years of expenses. Our expenses have gone up precipitously, especially with grants dollars coming in and COVID dollars. So I've done an analysis that we're below that cap. With that said, as I have mentioned to the town board, we are out of space. We are caught between, basically I have staff members working from home at times. There's, you know, the assessor is in a rental situation. And so although it's not listed as a capital fund because that structure hasn't been set up for the township, it's our intention, just like when we carried a surplus before, and we use that to purchase the 2 properties that are used for emergency family housing. I intend that we will see some kind of construction on our existing building or acquisition or renovation so that we can have a long-term plan for our office. Those are not appropriate funds for COVID dollars or ARPA dollars, in my opinion. Obviously, I could have asked for it and seen what, but I think our office really should be paid out of our fund, our surplus, and so the hope is that, you know, obviously we'll not spend that amount at all, but we are looking to do an investment in our space.
Other questions? Okay. Ivana?
All right, I believe you all have had the opportunity to look over the memo. If you haven't, I'm just going to give some summarized highlights of it. So just to clear up some things first, we do have something called a quadrennial reassessment year that's going to be occurring in 2024. I'm sure you all have heard of it. I'm sure you've all experienced it. We all live in Urbana. But basically, in that year, we have some added expenses that are going to be, or I would say they're projected to be imminent, specifically because we are going to need to account for things such as printing and appraisals and potentially miscellaneous expenses that we may have from that year. So specifically as far as the appraisals go, the reason why I believe that we need to have the significant increase that I put on there, which was an increase of approximately $11,000 to be temporary, as noted in the budget memo, is because I have reason to believe that we have several different commercial properties that will contest us as it goes to PTAB. And if we are not able to prove essentially to the public that we have the budget to fight them off, they're going to be aware that we are only able to have about 1 or 2 appraisals. And that's a lot of potential lost revenue for us, which gets redistributed inequitably to the rest of the community if we are not able to get those appraisals to contest what they are saying later on in the year at the PTAB level. So for that particular expense, I am asking for a temporary $11,000 increase, and along with another temporary increase of printing at $8,000 and miscellaneous expenses with a temporary increase of $1,000. The printing is specifically because we are most likely going to have to send out 2 documents to every parcel number in Urbana. We will certainly have to be sending out 1. So that extra $8,000 totaling to the budget line being $11,000 will help us in that aspect. The miscellaneous $1,000 is just for that miscellaneous expenses that might be incurred specifically from the quadrennial reassessment year. Outside of our temporary expenses, which total, as I said, $20,000 set to be taken off for the fiscal year 25 budget, the other expenses that were increased this year are the salary lines. That, I believe, is the biggest one. And with the salary, the reason for that is because, as you all know, we've had a lot of changes in our office over the last couple of months. And it's not just within the assessorship, but rather everyone in our office has had to have their roles and responsibilities reevaluated. As I've moved up, so has everyone else had to in that sense. So reevaluating for the roles and responsibilities that they will have to take on, and also accounting for the tight job market. I've conducted a salary study that's accounted for those roles and responsibilities that they'll be expected to perform this upcoming year, and I am asking for approximately a 19% increase in that line of the budget to remain competitive. This is specifically because we no longer really need entry-level positions in our assessor's office. We need those higher roles. It's very difficult to get educated, qualified individuals to fulfill higher-level roles in small and medium jurisdictions, which we are. A small jurisdiction is anywhere that has 10,000 parcels or less. A medium one is considered to be between 10,000 and 1 parcels up to 25,000. We have slightly over 11,000 parcels, so we are technically considered small-medium. Because of this, we want to retain the employees that we have because they are as educated as they are and as experienced as they are. And in order to remain competitive with their salaries and keep them in this office, that's why I'm asking for that increase. Additionally, there appears that as if there is on line, sorry, let me just take a look here. Line 6060, the FICA line, it appears that there's over a 500% increase, but that's actually not true. That line was actually just a correction from the prior year's fiscal budget. Same thing with the, let me just take a look at the memo here. It is the same thing with the, I'm sorry?
Sorry, there were 2 errors that I brought to the town board's attention. It's essentially was the IMRF pay down line. We didn't have any IMRF pay down, so it was just allocated to the wrong line item.
Thank you for that clarification. Obviously, I was not in the office when that occurred, so that was just remedying that error essentially in those 2 lines. And then following that, our computer services and software budget will predominantly remain the same for the upcoming fiscal year. The only projected increase of approximately 11% is due to us signing that multi-year contract with CoStar, which you all were made aware of several months ago. And that is a 3-year contract with CoStar, I believe. So with this fiscal year, we'll be moving into paying that 2nd year of it. So that's what that increase is intended to reflect. And additionally, we have just slightly increased the line for our rent budget as well. As the supervisor has said, we're not quite sure what our situation will be office-wise moving forward. So that's just to account for in case we need to sign a 6-month, 8-month, or 12-month lease, and if inflation has affected those prices since we were able to sign our last lease. And then I would also just like to highlight that the predominant portion of the increase of 5.25% that the assessor's office is asking for is from that 1-year temporary quadrennial year expense. If you exclude that particular that 20,000 value, we're actually brought down to an effective increase of 1.24%, which is significantly lower than it has been in years past for the assessor's office. Does anyone have any questions?
Questions for Ivana? Sharice?
Hi, are you gonna be sending those corrections and explanations also to us in another memo? That would be helpful, at least for me.
They are included in the memo that was in the budget, or excuse me, in the document that the supervisor presented
I'm
today.
trying to look at it now, but all I'm saying is that there was something that you were talking about before that seemed to be intensely, and Danielle said, well, we didn't have that before. Is that also in the memo?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Any other questions? Okay, thank you, Ivana.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll move on to unfinished business. I believe there is none. The item of new business is ordinance number T 23050001.
Can you hear me?
Oh, yes. Hi, James. Did you have a question?
I'm sorry, I did have a question about the year-to-year for the assessor costs.
Okay, go ahead.
And I got to tell you, there is problems with the audio this evening. I'm only hearing the speaker. I've heard Danielle pretty clearly earlier, and I heard the commentary from Ivana on the assessor's area. But I wanted to check and making sure I understood the total expense line, which is near the bottom of the draft budget. Are those totals accurate?
Are you talking about fund balance, James?
Well, I'm looking at particularly the fiscal year 23 assessor versus fiscal year 24 assessor. In the memo, it talks about a 5% increase, but I'm looking at these numbers, and it's like a 33% increase fiscal year 23 to 24 as I see it. And I'm just checking to make sure I'm not missing something.
It's entirely possible that this may have just been a technical error, because I actually had to submit my budget by statute earlier than the supervisor did. So my personal version, I may have accidentally missed in updating the version that Danielle had submitted you all today. I can take a look at that and see if that is the case, but that is what I assume that it might be. It's just a mistake.
I did see
Yeah,
the comments about
that's a
the
good
things that
catch,
put into
James,
the
because
budget.
I sat down with the assessor and we looked over the budget in detail, and we were close to between 5 and 6%. So there's something in the calculation that was introduced since that meeting. I'll take a look at it.
Okay, I just need some help understanding that a little bit better at some point. We can follow up later. I know it's a little difficult since I'm not there
Absolutely.
right now. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions? Okay. So we need a motion to place the ordinance and the budget on file for public inspection.
I found it. Yeah, I'll send an updated version. Thank you.
Mary Alice?
I have a question about this. So if the documents that we have right now are incorrect, will we meet the 30 days with the updated one? Is it 30 days or 90 days for township?
No, you need 30 days to put it on file. One of the things that can happen during those 30 days is adjustments to the budget. It's opportunity to catch errors in the budget for us to make revisions. In this case, the administration, it actually didn't impact this year's budget. It's just an error in how the last year's budget was calculated. So in the case of this particular error with the assessor's office, it's really a comparison. It's fiscal year 23 numbers, totals in the assessor's office are inaccurate in the document that you have. But even if there was an error in the budget, the 30 days notice is the opportunity to correct those errors. So please, if you find anything else, send it to both of us.
And then where you said that people would be able to call you and they would be able to also visit you in your office with the budget questions, is that correct?
Yeah, so if they want to meet with me, they need to make an appointment, but they could come to the office and the front desk staff can make an appointment for me. They have access to my calendar. Best way is to send an email or a phone call. You can leave a you can leave a message with the front desk, which will be sent to me via email. So I'm happy to take input from all different areas. I mean, we also sit at every single table, the Human Services Council, the Continuum of Service Providers to the homeless. We run the Rental Assistance Partners Program. We sit at the United Ways table. So that, you know, the input has come from all of these different organizations that impact our, you know, we have 16 collaborators we work with, and they've all given input on our piece. In fact, I just recently presented to the entire continuum all of the changes that are happening to Bridge to Home, and they had an opportunity to ask questions and give input. So this is, you know, as many stops on this road in terms of providing input. But yes, email, phone, or walk up, and we'll make an appointment.
So Diane, is the motion just to put, read this and place it on file?
Correct.
All right, so I'll move that ordinance number T 2023-05001, an ordinance approving the annual budget and appropriation ordinance for fiscal year 2023 to 2024 be put on file for the next 30 days.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Moved by Mary Alice. Seconded by Chandra. Further discussion? Will the clerk please call the roll?
Wu,
Yes.
Mr. Evans?
Yes.
Ms. Hersey?
Yes.
Ms. Colacetti?
Yes.
Ms. Bishop?
Yes.
Ms. Wilkin?
Yes.
Mr. Quisenberry?
Yes.
That motion passes. Thank you. With no further business before the Cunningham Town Board, this meeting is adjourned. Thank you.